The next sutta is 5.5.42. The Buddha said, "Monks, when a good man is born into a family, it is for the good welfare and happiness of many folk. It is for the good welfare and happiness of his parents, of his wife and children, of his slaves, workfolk and men, of his friends and companions. It is for the good welfare and happiness of recluses and Brahmins. Monks, just as good rains bring to perfection all crops for the good welfare and happiness of many folk, even so a good man is born into a family for the good welfare and happiness of many folk." That's the end of the sutta. Here Buddha is saying a good person can benefit many persons, those around him, and the effect can be quite widespread depending on that person. Because a good man has right view and he does beneficial things, beneficial good karma, and because of that many people are affected. But an evil man would have a wrong view and he does unwholesome karma, harmful karma that would harm many people. And sometimes when a child is born into a family, immediately when the mother conceives, the whole family is affected by this child. Sometimes this child brings good karma. It has been seen on many occasions. Sometimes immediately the father's business or fortune changes for the better. So sometimes children born can affect the whole house even from young. And concerning this, benefiting other people, there's one sutta, and we heard before, Anguttara Nikaya 4.61, where the Buddha talked about how wealth could be used in a rightful way, in a beneficial way, to benefit many people. We heard about that sutta. You can use wealth to benefit yourself, benefit your family, benefit your relatives, friends, etc. And even to do meritorious deeds like giving to recluses and monks food. The next sutta is 5.5.43. Anathapindika, the householder, visited the Exalted One, and saluting him, sat down at one side. And so seated, the Exalted One spoke to him and said, "There are these 5 things, householder, which are welcome, sought after, lovely, but hard to get in the world." "What 5? Long life, householder, is welcome, sought after, lovely, but hard to get in the world. Beauty is welcome, sought after, lovely, but hard to get in the world. Happiness, honor, the heaven worlds are welcome, sought after, lovely, but hard to get in the world. Such, householder, are the 5 things which are welcome, sought after, lovely, but hard to get in the world." I just stop for a while to comment. This is one of the very important suttas, very important concerning karma. The Buddha said these 5 things that hard to get is long life. Almost everybody wants long life. And beauty is something that comes when a person is born with that physical body. The 3rd one is happiness. The 4th one is honor, having a good name, a good reputation, being well known. And the 5th one is good rebirth. These things are hard to get and everybody wants them. Now the Buddha continued. "Now these 5 things, householder, are not to be got either by vows or prayers, I declare. For if they were, why should anyone languish here? To bring about long life, householder, it is of no use for an Aryan disciple yearning for long life, either to pray for it or to think much of it. The way that leads to long life must be walked by the Aryan disciple, and when the way is walked by him, it leads to the winning of long life, and he becomes a winner both of heavenly life and human life. So too of beauty, happiness, honor. Householder, to bring about life in the heaven worlds. It is of no use for an Aryan disciple yearning for heaven either to pray for it or to think much of it. The steps that lead to heaven must be stepped by the Aryan disciple, and when those steps are stepped by him, they lead to the winning of heaven, and he becomes a winner of the heaven worlds. That's the end of the sutta. So here the Buddha is saying that these things that we want cannot be got by vows or prayers only. Because if they could be got by vows and prayers, why should there be still so much suffering in the world? We know that all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas and countless Buddhas and Bodhisattvas and holy men have come. And yet, samsara is still the same. The three woeful planes, the three woeful paths, the hell world, the ghost realm, and the animal world, all are full with beings. And they will continue to be full with beings, and they will never be empty, because the Buddha said samsara will never end. And time will never end, and because time has no beginning and no end. So samsara will never end, and the Buddha said the only way to get these things that we want is to walk the path that brings us to what we want. For example, if we want long life, the Buddha said in the sutta on the karma, that in one of the suttas about karma, the Buddha said long life is to be got by practicing the precept against killing. That means if we don't kill other living beings, that is the way to get long life, because by allowing other beings to have long life, we will also get long life. And the way to get beauty is not to have a bad temper, not to get angry and sulk, etc. Because every time we get angry and show our temper, we become fierce. And when we become fierce, it shows in our face. And you keep on doing that, and it becomes a habit, and the face becomes fierce, and so it's not a lovely face, not a beautiful face. Whereas another person with a very good natured person, it doesn't get stirred up easily, and whatever words you throw at him, he takes it calmly with a sweet smile, and so it becomes a very sweet person, and that makes for beauty and happiness. There are many things to do to get happiness. Basically, it is to live a skillful life, to do wholesome action, wholesome things, instead of unskillful or unwholesome actions. And wholesome actions are actions that benefit other beings and benefit us. Unwholesome or evil actions are those actions that harm living beings, other beings, and harm us. And the way to get honor, as you have heard before in one of the suttas, is not to be jealous of other people, not to have a small heart, not to be selfish in that respect. And if that is so, then we are not spiteful. Then we will have honor, and heaven worlds are also to be got by skillful living, living a life according to Dhamma, in accordance with Dhamma, that will bring us to the heaven worlds. The Buddha said in the Dhammapada that striving should be done by yourselves. Buddhas only show the way. So the Buddha helps us indirectly by showing us the path, and we have to walk the path ourselves. We have to choose which way to walk, whether to walk the good way or walk the bad way. And there is some other sutta where the Buddha made it quite clear that it's not possible for a Buddha to make a vow to help us, or to pray for us, or to help us get out of samsara. If it were possible, the Buddha would have said so in these suttas. But whereas the Buddha said very clearly, like in this sutta, that we have to work our own karma to get the things we want. And for that's why we have to understand the principle of karma and vipaka. If we do the right things, for example, if we don't kill, long life will come about naturally. We don't have to wish for it. And for example, also a lot of people like to be wealthy. The way to be wealthy is to practice charity, because when we practice charity, we help others, and even in this life itself or in a future life, there will be many people who want to help you, so that whether you are doing business, you open a shop or whatever you do, there will be many people who want to help you, and so it is not difficult to become rich. The most important thing of all that we want to wish for in the world is the wish to end our suffering. And to end our suffering, we have to make the effort to walk the spiritual path. If we don't make the effort to walk the spiritual path, we will never get out of samsara, because the Buddha has said that the samsara will never end. And so we have to learn the suttas, understand the suttas, the Dhamma, and we practice according to the Dhamma. And we can see for ourselves, even in this life, when a person is about to pass away, if he has a good understanding of the Dhamma, he has led a skillful life, there will be no fear when death comes. He'll take death very calmly. Some people even very happily, because he knows he's going to a good rebirth. Now the next sutta is 5.5.44. Once the Exalted One dwelt near Vesali at the Gable Hall in Mahavana. Now the Exalted One, robing himself before noon, went to the house of Uga, the Vesalian householder, and sat down on the seat made ready there. And Uga, the Vesalian householder, approached the Exalted One, saluted him, and sat down at one side. So seated, he said to the Exalted One, "From the mouth of the Exalted One have I heard this, Lord. From his own mouth have I received this. The giver of good things gains the good. Lord, to me the gruel from sal flowers is good eating. Let the Exalted One accept some from me out of pity." The Exalted One accepted out of pity. Then he said, the Uga said, "From the mouth of the Exalted One have I heard this. The giver of good things gains the good. Lord, good is the flesh of pigs with plenty of jujube fruit. Good is the oily tube-like vegetable. Good is a mess of rice cleaned of black grains, served with assorted curries and condiments. Good are muslins from Benares. Good is a couch with a fleecy cover, woolen cloth or coverlet, spread with rugs of deer skins, with awnings over it and crimson cushions at either end. And though we know, Lord, that it is not suitable for the Exalted One, this sandalwood plank of mine, worth more than 100,000, yet let the Exalted One accept it out of pity." And the Exalted One accepted each gift out of pity. Then the Exalted One gave thanks to Uga, the Vesalian, with this benediction: "Who gives the good shall gain the good. He who to upright men gives willingly clothes, bed, food, drink, the needful requisites, and what's past is put aside, and obsesses not the mind. Whoso in Arahants doth find a field, forgives. Wise man, foregoing what is hard, in giving thus, the good shall gain the good." And when the Exalted One had thus given thanks to Uga, the Vesalian, he rose from his seat and departed. Now in due course, Uga, the householder, died, and thereafter arose in a certain ineffable world. At that time the Exalted One dwelt near Savatthi at Jeta Grove in Anathapindika's park. And there, when the night was far spent, Ugga the Deva, in lovely radiance, lighting up the whole of Jeta Grove, came and visited him, and after saluting, stood at one side. And the Exalted One spoke to him, standing there, saying, I hope, Ugga, things are well with you as we hoped. And he said, To be sure, Lord, things are as the Exalted One hoped. Then the Exalted One addressed this verse to Ugga the Deva. Who gives the good shall gain the good. Who gives the best shall best receive again. The choice receive. The chief place win. Who gives the best, the choice, the chief, that man has honor and long life wherever he arise. That's the end of the sutta. In this sutta, what is said here is that if a person gives good things, he receives good things in return. But one reason I mention this sutta is because here you notice that this man gave the certain food to the Buddha, and one of them is the flesh of pigs with plenty of jujube fruit. This is one of the many instances in the suttas and in the Vinaya where it is shown that the Buddha and his disciples were not vegetarians. But there's a type of meat that the Buddha said was allowable to Buddhists, and there's a type of meat that is not allowable, and that is mentioned in the Majjhima Nikaya. The Buddha said the type of meat that is allowable should have 3 conditions. You did not kill, you did not ask somebody to kill, that's the first condition. The second one, you did not witness the killing, you did not see the killing. That's the second condition. The third one, you did not hear the animal cry as it was being killed. With these 3 conditions, you don't have the direct karma of killing. So it is that kind of meat is allowable. The other type, where you kill or you ask somebody to kill, or you saw the killing, or you heard the animal cry as it was being killed, then it is not allowable. I won't go into the details of why the Buddha allowed it. Perhaps later when we discuss some other suttas also concerned with meat eating, and then I will go into it. So here sometimes the one of the last items is mentioned here is a sandalwood plank that's worth more than 100,000. Generally luxurious items the Buddha did not want to accept, especially in his younger days. The Buddha was very ascetic. Even robes, the Buddha did not accept robes that were the cloth of which was given by lay people. For about 20 or 25 years it seems that he did not accept such robes. They only went about picking up this discarded cloth. Sometimes this discarded cloth could be found in cemeteries, what they call charnel grounds, where people used to throw these corpses. They wrap these corpses with cloth, and then they throw these corpses on these charnel grounds so that the corpses were eaten up by animals. So monks used to go to these charnel grounds and pick up this discarded cloth and use them. And because these cloths were broken up, they had to be, pieces of it had to be sewn to make a robe. That's why a monk's robe, Theravada monk's robe, is like a patchwork, or like a field, like a rice field with pieces of cloth sewn together. So we notice from the Vinaya and the Suttas, as the Buddha grew older, he relaxed some of the rules, Again, like in this case, there's a sandalwood that's worth 100,000. He accepted it out of pity for Ugga, because Ugga wanted to get some merit. In the, I think, Mahaparinibbana, it was mentioned when the Buddha was about to pass away, somebody presented him with cloth with gold or something sewn on it or something, and the Buddha also accepted. Now the next sutta is 5.5.48. The Buddha said, monks, there are these 5 states not to be got to by recluse or Brahmin, by Deva, Mara or Brahma, nor by anyone in the world. What 5? Where aging brings no old age. That state is not to be got to by recluse or Brahmin, etc. Where sickening brings no sickness, nor dying, death, nor wasting, destruction, nor ending brings the end. That state is not to be got to by recluse or Brahmin, by Deva, Mara or Brahma, nor by anyone in the world. Monks, to the unlearned average man, aging brings old age, and when he is old, he reflects not thus. Not to me only does aging bring old age, but wheresoever there is a coming and going, a passing on and a rising of creatures, to all aging brings old age. And if when old age comes, I should mourn and pine, weep and wail, and beat the breast and fall into distraction, enemies would rejoice while friends would grieve. Food would not please me, ugliness would come upon my body, affairs would be neglected, and enemies would rejoice while friends would grieve. And when old age comes, he mourns, pines, weeps, wails, beats his breast, and falls into distraction. Monks, this man is called an unlearned average man. Pierced by the poison dart of sorrow, he just torments himself. Again, monks, to the unlearned average man, sickening brings sickness, dying death, wasting destruction, and ending brings the end. And when the end is near, he reflects not thus. Not to me only does ending bring the end, but wheresoever there is a coming and going of creatures, a passing on and an arising, to all ending brings the end. And if when the end is near, I should mourn and pine, weep and wail, and beat the breast and fall into distraction, enemies would rejoice while friends would grieve. Food would not please me, ugliness would come upon my body, affairs would be neglected, and enemies would rejoice while friends would weep. And when the end is near, he mourns, pines, weeps, wails, beats his breast and falls into distraction. Monks, this man is called an unlearned average man. Pierced by the poison dart of sorrow, he just torments himself. To the learned Aryan disciple also, monks, aging brings old age. But when he is old, he does reflect in that aforesaid way, that not to me only does ending bring the end, but wheresoever there is a coming going of creatures, a passing on, etc., etc. And when age comes, he does not mourn, nor pine, nor weep, nor wail, nor beat his breast, nor fall into distraction. Monks, this man is called a learned Aryan disciple. Drawn out is the poison dart of sorrow with which the unlearned average man torments himself. The sorrowless, dart-free Aryan disciple has cooled the self entirely. So also to the learned Aryan disciple, sickening brings sickness, dying death, wasting destruction, ending the end. And when the end is near, he reflects in a like manner. That is, not only to me does ending bring the end, but wheresoever there is a coming going of creatures, etc., etc. Monks, this man is called a learned Aryan disciple. Drawn out is the poison dart of sorrow with which the unlearned average man torments himself. The sorrowless, dart-free Aryan disciple has cooled the self entirely. Monks, these are the 5 states not to be got to by recluse or Brahmin, by Deva, Mara or Brahma, or by anyone in the world. That's the end of the sutta. Here basically is saying that no being can avoid aging, sickness and dying. Although the form it takes may vary. For example, in the heavenly world, it is not so visible. You don't see the aging so visible. An ordinary person, Putu Jhana, does not reflect properly when he's old or when he's dying, that all beings must grow old and die. And so he does not accept aging and tries to make himself, for example, look younger. He does not accept death and looks for all ways to cure himself. But one who understands the Dhamma accepts aging. He grows old gracefully. When death comes, he knows he's lived his life skillfully and he's not remorseful because he knows he's bound for a good rebirth. So that's about this sutta. The last thing I like to say is a lot of people, when they are sick, for example, with cancer, etc., they rush here and there trying to look for a cure because they don't accept death. But if they find a cure, they are very, very happy. But then they forget that cure is only for a short while, and death will come again to visit them. So, but a person who understands the Dhamma, he accepts all these things, growing old, sickening, dying. So when death comes, he accepts it gracefully, as you saw the other day, this lady who came from Ipoh, in spite of being so sick, she came so determined to come. And after coming for that robe offering the next few days, she's been in extremely high spirits, very good spirits. Now we come to Sutta number 5.5.51. Once the Exalted One dwelt near Savatthi at Jeta Grove in Anathapindika's park, and there he addressed the monks, saying, "Monks." "Lord," they replied, and the Exalted One said, "There are amongst these 5 checks, hindrances which overspread the mind, which weaken insight." "What 5? Sensual desire, monks, is a check, a hindrance, which overspreads the mind, which weakens insight. Ill will is a check, a hindrance, sloth and torpor, restlessness and worry. Doubt, monks, is a check, a hindrance, which overspreads the mind, which weakens insight." These monks are the 5 checks, hindrances. Monks, that a monk, verily, without being rid of those 5 checks, hindrances, which overspread the mind, which weaken insight, without strength and weak in insight or wisdom, shall know his own good, shall know another's good, shall know the good of both, or shall realize the excellence of knowledge and insight proper to Aryans, which goes beyond human state. That cannot be. Monks, suppose in the case of a mountain stream, winding here and there, swiftly flowing, taking all along with it, a man were to open watercourses into it from both sides. Then indeed, monks, the flow in midstream would be disturbed, swirled about and diverted. Nor would the stream wind here and there, nor flow swiftly, nor take all along with it. Even so, monks, that a monk, without being rid of these 5 checks, hindrances which overspread the mind, which weaken insight, without strength and weak in insight, shall know his own good or another's, or the good of both, or shall realize the excellence of knowledge and insight proper to Aryans, which goes beyond human state. That cannot be. Monks, that a monk, being rid of these 5 checks, hindrances which overspread the mind, which weaken insight, strong and with insight, shall know his own good, shall know another's good, shall know the good of both, or shall realize the excellence of knowledge and insight proper to Aryans, which goes beyond the human state. That surely shall be. Monks, suppose in the case of a mountain stream, winding here and there, swiftly flowing, taking all along with it, a man were to close the watercourses on both sides of it. Then indeed, monks, the flow in midstream would not be disturbed, swirled about or diverted, but the stream would wind here and there, flow swiftly forward, taking all along with it. Even so, monks, that a monk, rid of these 5 checks, hindrances which overspread the mind, which weaken insight, strong and with insight, shall know his own good or another's, or the good of both, or shall realize the excellence of knowledge and insight proper to Aryans, which goes beyond the human state. That surely shall be. And that's the end of the sutta. The sutta is about the 5 hindrances, pancha nivarana. The first one is sensual desire. Second one is ill will or anger. And then sloth and torpor, restlessness and worry, doubt these are the five hindrances. They are called hindrances because they hinder us from having wisdom. They hinder us from seeing things as they really are. So here the Buddha is saying, without being rid of these five checks, these hindrances which overspread the mind, which weaken insight, a monk shall know his own good or another's good or the good of both, or realize the excellence of knowledge and insight which goes beyond the human state. That cannot be. So you see, it's very clear here that to get insight, to get wisdom, to go beyond the human state, the manusa dhamma is the human state, we have to get rid of the five hindrances. That is why in meditation, there are two parts to meditation always. The first part is called the samatha practice, which helps us to get rid of the five hindrances. Actually, when we attain that samadhi, the hindrances goes away naturally without a conscious restraint. This was mentioned in one of the suttas earlier that I had read, if you all remember. So, in the Majjhima Nikaya, Sutta number 108, the Venerable Ananda was asked what kind of meditation is praised by the Buddha and what kind of meditation is not praised by the Buddha. And then the Venerable Ananda said, the kind of meditation where the five hindrances are abandoned, that kind of meditation is praised by the Buddha. If you practice a kind of meditation where the five hindrances are not abandoned, that is certainly not the type of Buddhist meditation, because it's not praised by the Buddha. So we have to always remember in meditation, we have to get rid of the five hindrances before we can attain insight, before we can know our own good or another's good, or realize the excellence of knowledge and insight proper to Aryans. We have to get rid of the five hindrances. In the Majjhima Nikaya and Sangyutta Nikaya, it is said that when one attains Jhana, one attains the five factors of Jhana, and then one abandons the five hindrances. So, Jhana is definitely Buddhist meditation. It is called one of these Uttari Manusa Dhamma, that which surpasses the human state. So here you should know the importance of jhana and samadhi in meditation, because it helps us to get rid of the five hindrances. If we were not rid of the five hindrances, no insight would arise. Then the next sutta is 5.6.52. The Buddha said, it's a heap of bad things, monks, and in saying this of the five hindrances, one would speak rightly. Indeed, monks, the whole is a heap of bad things, that is to say, the five hindrances. What five? The hindrance of sensual desire, of ill will, of sloth and torpor, of restlessness and worry, and the hindrance of doubt. It's a heap of bad things, monks, and in saying this of these five hindrances, one would speak rightly. For verily, monks, the whole is a heap of bad things, that is to say, these five hindrances. That's the end of the sutta. Here again the Buddha stresses that we have to get rid of these bad things, these five hindrances.